Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Mortgage Matters in Minutes. Again, I'm your host, Brent Rasmussen, owner of Mortgage Specialists. Today, we're going to get right to it, and it is fun real estate property tax time here in the Omaha, Douglas, and Sarpy County area. So I just wanted to get some education to you guys and get some information because we're getting many calls this week that my assessed value just went up. Now what? And many people are obviously calling the assessor, calling the treasurer's department, trying to figure out what they need to do to dispute this. So we're going to go through that process today and give you some information, just not every little step or every little detail, but at least the basic process that you need to go through. So first, let's give you a little bit of education on what is an assessment. A lot of people use the word appraisal, but it's actually a tax assessment, which is what the county values your property. Once you receive that statement, which is this time of the year, it will say last year's assessment was this year's assessment is this. Generally, people don't mind it when they see the number being the same, but when it goes up 10, 20%, 30%, people get very nervous, very worked up, and obviously rightfully so because their property taxes goes up. So why does that make a difference? Because the assessor just values the property, but you have a tax levy, and that tax levy generally doesn't change unless something happens with that area or school district or something like that. So in order to calculate your property taxes here locally, we take your assessed value and we multiply it by the tax levy. And that's what your property taxes are annually. They're paid twice, once by April 1st and once by August 1st. And that county assessed value is supposed to be somewhere between 92 to 100% of your value. I think the biggest education piece out of this entire video that I can pass on to you is if you haven't been following real estate here locally lately, values have gone up tremendously. And I know everybody that calls me says, hey, my tax value is much higher than what it is. And while I can't argue for every single property, I would tell you, generally speaking, it's that 80-20 or 90-10 rule that those properties are accurately assessed, and there might be a few that are missed. But I know from working with the assessor's office for many years now, and knowing people that work down there, everybody's doing the best they can possibly do. I'm not here to badmouth any county official or any government person because assessing properties is more of a blanket situation. They don't go to every single house, and know every single property because there's no way they can handle doing that with the manpower they have. So are they going to miss a few properties? Sure. And maybe overassess a few properties? Sure. But are there going to be properties that are underassessed? Heck yeah. And I can tell you, I can see that each and every day, that finally, when properties have transferred from a seller to a buyer, the county might see then what the real value is due to the real estate transfer of what that property value was. And that can affect your taxes. And that's an easy way for the county to catch up on property taxes without individually going and assessing certain areas and blanketing all kinds of neighborhoods. So let's talk about that. We get a lot of words, appraisal versus assessed value. Okay, appraisal value is going to be what your house is worth at that time by an independent professional. Assessed value is a very similar number, but it's a value the county puts on it. They're not going to go as much extent because they don't know what's inside your property. They're not walking the inside of your property like an appraiser is. So generally speaking, we see assessed values a little bit lower than appraised values. So we've seen massive increase in home values, as I mentioned earlier, and that what I warn all my clients of is because many times they state, I want to protest this. I know this is wrong. And I'll say, let's just calm down. Let's cool heads prevail. And let's look at it and say, okay, if for some reason you send some dispute information to the county and it's lower than what they really think it is, you might see your taxes go up even higher. So before we run out and get an appraisal, it's just like thinking about having a hailstorm. You don't have a hailstorm and you call a roofer to file a claim before you even get anybody out there to look at your property. What we advise all people of is get the expert opinion, maybe contact your realtor or a real estate agent, have them do a quick CMA, see what kind of value they think your house is worth. If it's close to that assessed value number, I would say don't waste your time getting an appraisal and paying the money that you already now know what the real value of your house is. And I can tell you most of the time, that I run into this situation. An individual just hasn't kept up with what the real value of their property is. And we see this all the time. But what we're going to do here today quickly is just give you the steps. If you still wanted to go through and proceed with the dispute on your property's value, we're going to kind of give you the steps that are really pretty easy to do. The county has a process. It's very detailed. You must file that dispute before June 30th. And really what the county is telling you to do is gather your information. You can schedule an appointment to meet with the assessor, or you can just file your dispute online. And you want to go to the website called Board of Equalization. .org, which is Douglas County's website here. And you can see they're experiencing very high call volumes right now because everybody is getting their assessments and they're not liking the number that's coming in the mail to them. Well, you can see right here on this click, you can file your protest online. You can file a protest on paper. There's lots of important dates on here and FAQs. So before we get into it, you must file your dispute by June 30th. So we have here on, June 6th, this particular day, a little bit of time before we can get that information out. The county is going to tell you to dig up data, dig up other properties that have sold, pull comps of recent sales that have happened. They're also generally, as an answer, always going to tell you to get an appraisal. I don't necessarily always believe that to be true and factual, but if you feel you want to, go for it. I'm always about making sure to try to save people money, but if you feel the appraisal is the best number or best dispute for you, then please go for it and do it. So here, for example, is the real value property value protest. You can complete it. You can see it's very, very easy to put your name, your information, the parcel number, the property address. What do you think the land is? Well, what is assessed for currently and what the building is assessed for. Then here you can write in any of the reasons that you want to protest the value. Obviously, you sign and you turn this in. Optional, if you'd like to have an appointment to go over your particular dispute, you can. Obviously, there's many different types of real property. A lot of residential properties, for the most part, are standard. They're pretty regular. They're pretty easy to follow. But if you say have a rural property with a lot of different buildings and land and all kinds of different things going on, obviously there's much more challenging things you might want to meet face to face. So you'll turn this form in. It's also called the Form 422. So when you contact the county, they'll tell you to maybe file the 422 and send in an appraisal. That's generally what they're telling people right now, because I've had 4 or 5 clients call in the last couple of days, and that's what they're telling particular consumers to do. You don't completely have to do that in order to the appraisal, but you do have to have information to dispute why. My comeback always here is there's also a great time frame on what you can do, an information guide. All this is here on this Douglas County Board Equalization. There's plenty of things and plenty of information the county has set up for you to make a fair dispute. Where do we leave things? I would tell you, again, if you have this value you think is way out of line, get with a professional, find out if your value really is not worth that number. I ran the study a few years back. I don't remember what year it was. I put together a big presentation just among members in my business group, and nearly all of them were very accurately assessed. So the county is not out to get you. Values have gone up tremendously. Inflation is hit. And that's going to affect your pocketbook here this next year with property taxes going higher. Well, none of us like taxes. None of us want to pay them. I completely understand where you're coming from, but really having the education, the information to know before you file a dispute makes complete sense in my mind. Knowing what your value is, because maybe it is worth significantly less, or the tax assessment is worth less than what your real value is. And if you're happy to tell them a much higher number, they might increase your taxes even more. So hopefully you gain some access to information here today. Tax assessments can be very, very challenging. What I also would advise is look at those comps and see what those properties are tax assessed at, because if the neighbors are assessed at a lower number than what their value, theirs should be very equally treated as well. Hope you learned a little bit about just the basics of tax assessments. While we're not an expert by any means of setting your tax value at Mortgage Specialists, we've been through it many, many years with many, many clients to give the best answers we possibly can to prepare you for the best steps that you can, versus wasting your money or wasting your time or possibly getting an increased tax assessment as well too. We're here to answer any questions at 402-991-5153, or you can definitely check us out on our website at mtg-specialists.com. I'm Brent Rasmussen, owner of Mortgage Specialists, and we'll see you here soon. Thanks. Mortgage Specialists. Driven, trusted, reliable.